The San Francisco 49ers 2024 season is over. Where do they go from here? What went wrong this year? We get into that next. What's up, everybody? Here again on this droopy and wet and rainy Friday, the 13th, and it feels so fitting as a 49ers fan to talk through the end of their season, as if Jason himself came and just absolutely slashed this team down in a really, really ugly Thursday night game. So thank you for joining. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like if you enjoyed the content. I'm going to go through here kind of just my biggest gripes of this 2024 season. I know Jim and I talked about it at length here a few weeks ago, just what we saw, what was happening, what was coming down the pipeline. And sure enough, I think a lot of it did come true. So I think the biggest thing from this season, there's so many things to talk about where they went wrong, where things just were not feeling right. Everything from Ayuk's holdout to God, so many just like personal issues off the field that happened with this team. Kyle looked like he had aged about 14 years in the last 14 months. You could see it coming from a mile away. I don't necessarily fault this team for trying to hold on for one more run kind of with the core group, but I called this back at the beginning of the season that the Super Bowl hangover was coming. And what I meant by that is you hold on for too long, you start to sense the Giants did it in baseball. They held on to that team and that core group past the 14 World Series, and their contracts got inflated and their players got old, and they just didn't quite have it anymore. You saw the Warriors do it, the same exact thing. And the Niners, again, they kind of fell into that same trap. So I understand when teams do it, you were just, half an overtime away from winning the Super Bowl. You don't want to necessarily blow things up, but they didn't necessarily retool either. They didn't really, go, I would say, in a direction to sustain this run in this window. And now they're kind of caught with a lot of bad contracts, a lot of vets. There's going to be a lot of talk here in the upcoming months, who to move off of, what should they do. So kind of closing the book here. We have a few weeks left, but the biggest kind of gripes and issues I feel like for this 49ers team outside of personnel is they really just lost their identity this year. We saw it from the 19 run. We saw it, I know 2020 was bad, but or 21, but you saw this team every year with Kyle Shanahan when they went on runs. They were a run-first team. Started with Mostert in that run. Then it pivoted over to McCaffrey. They were a run-first, play-action football team that got leads. They squeezed teams, and they rushed the passer on the defensive side of the ball. That's who the 49ers were. That was completely lost, obviously, this year. I know a lot of people will kind of come right out of the gates and say, well, yeah, you don't have Christian McCaffrey. I get that. Jordan Mason was one of the leading rushers in the NFL. So the rushing game was fine. Then Jordan Mason goes down. Isaac Guerrendo's looked pretty freaking good. They completely lost the mark in that sense. They lost, again, who they were. The biggest, you saw it just last night, right? They're down to the third string running back in Guerrendo, who looked really good against the Bears in his first career start. Last night, it is a rainy game. It was pouring down rain at Levi's Stadium. And Kyle Shanahan comes right out of the gates, shotgun, 4 receiver sets, throwing the ball all over the yard. I understand when the weather broke and it kind of started to appear a little bit better if you're going to open things up. But that game was so tight and there was no reason to do it. I understand your offensive line was getting pushed around, but help them out a little bit. Help Brock Purdy out a little bit. Help everyone out a little bit. Run the football. Sean McVay and the Rams, it's funny when you go back and look at the numbers. Kyren Williams had the same average per rush number as Isaac Guerrendo last night. The difference was Kyren Williams rushed it 28 times. The Rams ran the ball 38 times last night. The Niners ran it, I believe, 18 times. So just from a schematic standpoint, I just feel like Kyle and the whole Niners team just really lost, who they were, their identity. You're down a bunch of guys. You don't have Brandon Ayuk. You look at the game and watch it. You have Brock Purdy, who I love Jawan Jennings. I mean, he's their best receiver, absolutely, on this team. But you have Brock airing it out in shotgun to Jawan Jennings on go routes. That's not what Jawan Jennings does. Jawan Jennings is a 4'7", 4'8", 40 receiver. I'm sorry, he's not a go route guy. Multiple times you see that happening. Multiple times you see Kyle Juszczyk, motioning out to the receiver position, running routes. Eric Saubert running routes. Guys, this doesn't provide any kind of threat whatsoever to a defense. They don't care. Go ahead, throw it to Kyle Juszczyk for a 3-yard gain. Go ahead and throw it to Eric Saubert. It's so easy to defend, and you can see it. Like, they were almost like, from a defensive scheme and standpoint, like, if I have a team that's coming in saying, hey, we're going to throw the ball 30 times in the rain, and we're going to have guys like Juszczyk and Saubert out there running routes, as a defensive coordinator, I'm like, I'll take that all game long. No problem at all. So I would have thought last night in the rain they'd come out. Dre Greenlaw's back, crowds into it, season's on the line. You have Garendo, who's running absolutely with power and just being ferocious. Run the ball, wear them down. Let Brock get under center, get into some play action, target Jennings, target Kittle, get those guys involved in the play action game, and keep the ball. Keep the ball out of Matt Stafford's hands. Keep it out of Puka Nakua's hands. Keep it out of Kyron Williams' hands. They literally did the opposite of those things. So I just don't understand what the thought process is going into those matchups, like we saw last night. And we've seen it all season long. Every time they're going to play a team who, all week long, the talk is, God, they're facing a bottom five rush defense. Yep. The thought is, well, they're probably going to come out and throw. They're facing a pass funnel defense, let's say. Yeah, they're going to come out and just pound the rock. It's like they're trying to be the smartest guys in the room all the time and outthink everything instead of just saying, hey, we're the 49ers and this is what we do and we're coming. Because that's what got them to 2 Super Bowls. That's what got them, to multiple NFC championship games and won this division multiple times. And this year, and I don't know if it's because of injuries and it just threw Kyle off his mark, but you could tell that they were just not the same. And it felt awkward. It felt weird. There was a lot of questions. And I think, that is something that they really have to get back to and figure out, again, who do they want to be? And we'll touch on this going forward, but sticking to their identity. The best teams do it. You know what they want to do. They don't mince words. They don't mess around. They come right at you with what they do best. The other major gripe that I have from this season, looking back, and again, a few weeks left, but they just refuse to make changes and make adjustments to areas of the team that were glaring all season long. From the beginning of the season, Jake Brendel, major weak point. I know it came to a head last night and everybody's up in arms. Devondre Campbell, people have been calling for Devondre Campbell to hit the bench for weeks, months. He's slow. He can't cover running backs or tight ends. He does not fill the hole like Dre Greenlaw, obviously. You saw the difference in that last night. What is it you say you do here? These guys were just completely overmatched, and their better years are behind them, and they have younger guys in the waiting, ready to prove themselves. Kyle's and, Sorensen and these guys that are not willing to make changes and move off of players until it's too late is a big reason why they are eliminated today, pretty much from the playoffs. Continuing to stick with guys like Debo, who just clearly has lost a step. Okay, it happens. Not much you can do middle of the season when that happens, except stop running the plays that did work 3 years ago. Stop running the jet sweeps. Stop running him out of the backfield. That's not what Debo is good at anymore. He doesn't have that burst. Does he get it back? I'm kind of skeptical that happens. But I understand you can't move the player or just change the player mid-season, especially one you're paying $25 million to. But you can change how you use them. You don't have to just spread them out and let them, run covered all down the field and basically be a decoy all game. So I just didn't understand why their lack of ability to adjust and make changes. Another point on that, Did you notice or hear any changes about guys getting released or them signing other guys or moving off players or moving starters onto special teams to try to improve that unit? No, you didn't, because they didn't do it. Um, they didn't really adjust out of the wide nine defense all year. Look, Hargrave was a bad fit for this scheme. We all see it now. We all know it. Even when Hargrave went down, they were really in trouble. In order to run the wide nine defense, you have to have two defensive ends who can get after the quarterback, ideally speed rushers, because that's why you're lining them up outside like that, to get the angle so the tackle can't get out there. You also need two really, really good defensive tackles who can either A, penetrate and cause havoc, or B, stuff the run and take out multiple blockers so your linebackers can fill and stop the run. Without Dre Greenlaw, without Hargrave, without any of those guys in place, they literally had none of those boxes checked all season long. And they continue to run the wide nine defense. It literally makes no sense at all. You could have very easily just tweaked your formation and your scheme and been probably a lot better versus the run than they were all season. But again, their hard-headedness and lack of adjustments for this team was just really mind-blowing all season long. And I still don't have an answer to it. I wish somebody would ask Kyle in the press room or Sorensen or whatever. They're probably not going to answer you. And obviously you have to find a way to ask it in a professional manner, but they just made no adjustments all year. We heard about adjustments, multiple guys out there, JT O'Sullivan, Kurt Benkert, all these guys talking about how the Niners very glaringly, like, they don't adjust and allow their quarterback to adjust pass protections. Defenses know this. They know it. And Kyle's answer is, okay, well, we just go to the next play or we flip the play. Defenses know that too. So you don't think they're trapping guys. You don't think they're trapping the offense into saying, okay, if we show them this alignment, they're going to adjust. And then we know exactly what they're adjusting to. Like, guys, this is just like very basic type stuff. And when you don't have receivers that can separate, you don't have game breakers, and you don't have, the king of being able to bail you out of tricky situations in Christian McCaffrey, it was a problem all year long. So I don't put a lot of it on Brock. I put a lot of the offensive struggles and defensive struggles and special team struggles on just the hard-headedness and the lack of adjustments from this coaching staff from day one. So I hope that they can get this in order and make these adjustments moving into next year. And I don't know if that means, new coaches or just a new philosophy overall. But man, it is just so frustrating week in and week out that they never moved off of glaring issues that guys that even just played like small college football like myself, who can watch the all 22 and be like, why are they doing this? That doesn't make sense. And I haven't, Vic Fangio and those guys have lost more football knowledge than I'll ever know, right? And all of us watching it, and all of us talking on YouTube. So I'm just saying these guys, they just have to find a way to evolve a little bit and change with the times. So I think they got a little bit comfortable and cocky that the last few years they have had just an insane amount of talent. And now this year they didn't, and they were lost. They were completely lost and stuck in the mud. So where do they go from here? 5 things I'd like to see going into the offseason. We're a few weeks away from that for this team officially. Number 1, it's time for Kyle Shanahan's 2.0 version of the Niners to be implemented and trying to move forward. As much as everybody wants it to happen, or I guess some people want it to happen and some content creators, they're not moving off Kyle Shanahan. I don't know what to tell you. I have my gripes with Kyle. I think he is a very below average in-game coach. I think Kyle is one of the smartest football guys probably in the league and in the world. You put him on a whiteboard in front of, or, in film with anybody, he can go toe-to-toe with anyone. But I think in-game adjustments, I think when his fastball or his game plan or his script is not there, I think he really has trouble adjusting in-game. However, they're not going to move off from him. Jed loves him. He's a money-making machine for this franchise. Try to remember back before he got here how embarrassing and pathetic the 49ers were. This is a team that's been to 4 NFC championships and 2 Super Bowls. They ain't moving off him, at least not this offseason. So with that being said, it's time for the version 2.0 of this next window to start opening. And what they have to do is start moving off of some of these players, these veterans who are no longer worth the value in their contracts. Their talent has peaked. They're on the other side. And it's time for them to start finding some new players and some new guys to step up and fill those roles. It's time to move off guys like Kyle Juszczyk. Love Juice. He's been awesome. He's been great for this team. Do they go find a new fullback? I don't know. Do they move into a more one back, situation and 3 receiver sets or 2 tight ends, less fullback? I don't know. That's up to Kyle. But you can't just keep rolling Kyle Juszczyk out there. He does nothing at this point. He's a very above average or average blocker at best at this point. Dynamic, I guess, if you want to still look at it from a fullback perspective. But there's fullbacks for other teams that are just road graders and just demolish people in the running game. So if that's what you're looking for, you can get that guy. In terms of a Swiss Army knife, again, go watch the film, guys. They motion him out. He runs a route, and nothing happens. It's a wasted position. It really is, and so it's hard to evaluate the whole offense of guys like that. And it's time. It's time to move into the next version of what this team's going to look like. Point number 2. It's time for the team to start acquiring the best players that they can and molding and morphing their scheme to the talent. They get caught up too much in drafting players who fit what has worked in the past, what has worked their system, and why you miss on a lot of guys, right? Because they're not the best football players in the room or at that position and available in the draft. You draft a guy because you say, well, he might be really great for the zone running scheme. Okay. Well, how about you just go get the guy who is like wildly productive in college and is a very good football player and can step in and help you right away, and maybe run a little bit more just power ISO game. I don't know. Maybe adjust that because that's what the running back does. That's what I mean. Or these receivers, right? Like who maybe haven't run a full route tree in college. Okay, but this guy's a wildly dynamic 6'4", 210-pound guy who runs sub 4.4. Kyle will take Ricky Parasol instead of him. Why? Because he thinks Parasol is better for his scheme and what he likes to do in terms of crossing routes and this and that. But you see, when that doesn't work, those guys are fairly irrelevant because guys like Ricky Parasol, they're not size, speed, weight guys. They're not blue chippers in a sense. So it's time for them to start kind of getting back to just drafting the best football players and adjusting their scheme to fit those guys. The other reason why that's super important is because everybody's complained for the last couple of years that Kyle doesn't care about special teams. And I don't really think he does. But your special teams in the NFL is wildly built out of younger depth pieces, right? Your third string tight end, your third string or second string running back, your fifth corner. If you're drafting those guys to fit your scheme, once again, that doesn't mean they're the best football player. That means they fit your scheme well, but they're not great football players maybe. So when they go on special teams, of course they're getting overmatched. Versus if you just go draft really good football players, they will kick ass for you on special teams. This is not that complicated. So I think that's a big reason why special teams is really struggles for this team. Or, you see just late game, missed tackles and things like that. Just go draft the best player. Just go draft good football players. Kyle is a good enough schematic coach that I truly believe if he is willing to be flexible and get out of his ways, he can coach any scheme that he wants. It does not have to be his quote unquote system. Go get the best player available and everything will be all right. Third point, when it comes to drafting good players, in my opinion, as I called out last year heading into the draft, it has to start in the trenches. I know everybody's recognizing it and seeing it now. Your left guard position has to be addressed. Maybe you move Pooney over to left guard. So whichever it is that Pooney's not playing, left guard, right guard, has to be addressed. Center has to be addressed. Right tackle has to be addressed. You have to get those positions in order because who knows? Trent Williams could retire next week or, a couple weeks. Season's not quite over yet. But if he does, they are in major trouble. If Trent Williams goes, this is probably one of the worst offensive lines in the league, I think, pretty clearly. And Trent ain't going to play forever. So you need to start solidifying some of these positions ASAP. And, the Niners just don't do it early in the draft. I said a couple years ago, I think he went in the second round, maybe the third, but I was all over Creed Humphrey. Everyone, oh, you can't draft a center, this and that. That's weird. Chiefs did it. Now they have a center who is an all-pro center, and he is going to be the anchor of that offensive line, snapping the ball and protecting Patrick Mahomes for the next decade. God, what a horrible pick that was. Instead, I don't even remember who they picked. That's probably not Creed Humphrey or anywhere near that talented of a player. So all I'm saying is get young, get dynamic, get guys who are just ass kickers in the trenches, protect Purdy or, whoever you decide to roll with that quarterback. Give Christian McCaffrey a little bit of breathing room. Saquon Barkley looks pretty good now that he's got a good offensive line. Be pretty nice if Christian McCaffrey, coming off an injury-riddled season, would have, a little bit of help out there running. And it just has to be addressed, man. You've got to address the defensive end position across from Bosa. Got to get more production out of that. Defensive tackle, I talked about it. If you were going to run the wide nine, or really any scheme, but especially the wide nine, which they just won't bend off of, you have to go get a defensive tackle or two that can stop the run or penetrate on passing plays from them inside. It's the only way to run that scheme successfully. And the last position I think they really need to address, they refuse to play Jacob Cowing. I don't know why, but you have to go get a receiver that can stretch the field. Deebo Samuel is not fast anymore. Jawan Jennings is awesome. He is not fast anymore. Brandon Ayuk, who knows what he's going to look like after coming off a fully reconstructed knee. You have to get a receiver who can stretch the field. Oh, Pearsall. Pearsall's not a stretch guy. Go get a guy who is sub 4.4. That defenses, when they see this guy out there, they truly have to say, okay, we have to watch that guy. That guy cannot get behind us. It changes and opens up everything in your offense, and especially in Kyle's ideal offense, which is running the ball. It eliminates 8 guys in the box. It eliminates guys from jamming in the middle of the field and the crossing routes because, again, you have to keep safeties over the top or corners off because of that threat. They have to get that figured out. Brock Purdy, number 4. I'm definitely open to an extension for Brock Purdy. I'm not in the mindset that you can't pay Brock Purdy. Teams around the league pay quarterbacks all the time, and they still construct really great rosters around them. Go look at Philadelphia. Go look at Detroit's paying Jared Goff. Where they got a lot of talent. How does that happen? This is very possible. The Packers, they're paying Jordan Love now. They got a pretty good team. You have to draft well, though. So I'm open to paying Brock Purdy. I, like everyone else, would prefer it if Brock Purdy doesn't reset the quarterback market and become the highest paid QB in the league. But if you can get Brock from somewhere in the $40 to $50 million a year range, guarantee more of it because you don't have any off the field concerns or anything like that, more than happy with that. If it's a 3 to 4 year deal, I would love it even more. Give them the 3 year, $100 million, fully guarantee it. That's totally fine with me. And continue to draft quarterbacks behind him, because best case scenario, you draft an absolute home run and you sell that guy off, or you trade Purdy down the road. And if you miss, then you miss. You miss on a lot of draft picks already. So why not take a shot at the most important position in the league and on the team in case you strike gold and you do go get that guy when you get him in practice and go, oh my God, I think we got him. You think you got your Josh Allen. You think you got your Mahomes. You think you got your, Lamar Jackson, whatever. So keep drafting, keep Purdy around. And I think that's the right way to play it. And the 5th one, Kyle Shanahan just absolutely needs a break. Going all the way back to the beginning and losing the identity piece. Take a break, Kyle. Reset the board a little bit. Reset the playbook. Reset the philosophy of the team. Reset people on the coaching staff. Go take like a month and a half off and don't even think about football. Come back and say, okay, I was a little too close to the trees to see the forest. Definitely gripping too tight, lost control of the wheel, whatever, you want to say that sounds cool and famous sayings or whatever. But again, I have my gripes with Kyle, but there's no denying that this team has gotten to multiple NFC championship games, multiple Super Bowls, and we're so close to winning both of them. They need to hit the reset button, but I think they can obviously get back. So it's time to hit the reset. It's time to, wipe clean and evaluate truly what happened and what went wrong this season and get back on the horse and ride, because you can turn things around fast in the NFL. You don't have to be down long. That's why the NFL is awesome. You can go from a really poor season this year, absolutely knock the draft out of the park. Guys come back, have a healthy season, and hopefully drama free. And the Niners are right back to contending next season. So that's my thoughts on after this, on this Friday the 13th, the death of the 49ers in 2024. But I think they're going to be back soon. Cool. Till next time.